All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 16th day of October, 2018. Well, let's see, this would be an 8-day numerologically. Remember, we're not using the year in that because the year results in 11, or the master number for illumination, so I've been leaving that one alone and just using the month and the day for the day's numerology. And so today we have an 8. 8 is an interesting number. It's mastery, it's success, it's balance, it's harmony, it's practical matters. It can mean authority. I always look at 8 in terms of standing in one's own power. I liken it to the strength card in the tarot. That's number 8 in the major arcana. So it's to me, it just denotes inner strength that's based on, maturity maybe. Over time, you kind of develop this inner strength about you, and that's what I think the 8 reflects for the most part, at least internally. Well, if you haven't been here before, welcome. And if you have, welcome back. Glad you're here. 4 days a week, I look at tarot and rune influences for each day. Sometimes I just draw one card and one rune, and sometimes I draw more. It just depends on what I draw. If I draw a court card, I'm going to draw another one because they're funny. It can go either way. It can either mean the individual, a young person, either male or female, or an older person of authority, male or female, or it can mean the qualities that they represent. So it's always nice to get another card when I pull a court card, so that I can be sure that I know just exactly what direction we're going with it. In a larger reading with more cards, you can, especially if you have more than one, you can look at interactions between the two. So I don't know, especially if they're looking at one another. Then they're communicating, aren't they? So, but when they're by themselves, it's anybody's guess, really. So anyhow, I'm going to count 13 and pull a card. You don't have to do that. It's just my process. I pull 13. I was born on the 13th, and 13s are everywhere in my life, so I might as well do it here too, huh? Anyway, this is the Ace of Pentacles. So we're talking about, when we talk about pentacles, that's the earth element. And so that's the practical matters. That's, money, wealth, legacy, home, hearth, family, all of the things that create our foundation here in form. Let's see if I can get it a little bit closer. But we see a hand reaching out from a cloud with a very large pentacle. And we see a pathway leading to or from a vined archway. And the vines looks like they cover a rock wall. There's mountains in the distance. So it's almost like the path before us, isn't it? Aces in the suits are said to contain all of the aspects of the entire suit. So the Ace of Pentacles would contain all of the aspects of that suit. In some decks, they're called discs. In some decks, coins. So we can talk today. But basically, we're talking about physical matter, right? And we're talking about stability and security and physical beauty of the land around us. It's about keeping our feet firmly on the ground, basically, and beginning from that standpoint. We can have our head, everywhere else, but, if we can keep ourselves centered and grounded, and maybe that's where we really truly find our strength, is in our grounding with the earth, with earth energies. I think that we can get a little carried away sometimes, and sometimes it's just nice to go outside and our thoughts get so scattered anymore, and we react to things, and it's just nice to go outside and just look at the scenery, look at the yard, look at your the plants growing. I realize, we're coming into fall, so you're seeing the cycles as they progress. It's not my favorite time, I have to say, going out into the garden, seeing all of everything I grew all year long, all summer long, they're dying and everything. But it's a necessary part of life. We go through birth and death, cycles of birth and death. So a beginning and ending. And so I guess the message of the Ace of Pentacles is keep your feet on the ground while you're doing that, to make it a little easier. But let's pull a rune and see what it has to say for today. Oh, Othala. Well, that's kind of interesting. Othala is a mixture of everything, actually. Again, it's also it's considered to be the final rune of the Elder Futhark. It's rune 24 in that particular one. So it has a numerological value of 6. And 6 is always, to me, meaning the higher self is in play. Here you have the top part of it looks like Ingwas, and then the bottom part looks like Gebo. And so if you look at it from that standpoint, you're looking at, Ingwas is the seed, so you have the energy for expansion. And then Gebo is balanced energy exchange. And so the long and the short of it is that as we expand or create our world, we want to do that in a balanced fashion. In balanced energy exchange, not only with the whole experience, but with others, with the land, with all of it, People get upset, excuse me, with the idea of regulations, but when corporations can't figure out that they shouldn't pollute the air or put nasty chemicals into our water system, you can see why we need to have them. If they could be trusted not to do those things, then we wouldn't need those things, would we? Because our mindset would be such that we would be thinking about what the effect we have, about the greater effect we're having on the world, right? And Othala to me means that it's our ancestral heritage. What are we going to leave behind? I just did a post yesterday on the blog, a Witch Knows one. It's the birthday edition, and so I did a tarot reading because I always do that around my birthday, and then I write it up and stick it on the blog. Well, I talked a little bit about my whole about last year and what I thought about it, and then I I looked at the tarot reading from that perspective. From last year to this year and what portends for this next year. And one of the things that seem to come through is the notion of ancestry, what we take with us, and that we don't remember that when we come through the veil. Well, most of us don't. Some of us do. Some of us have come through nowadays, during this ascension time where we're awakening to who we actually are. And so some of us come in with that awareness. Some of us have to reach it through meditation. But at some point, you become aware of the legacy of the past that's present within your life. And as long as that's informing in a way that's positive, that you can feel the richness of that tradition, that's one thing. But when it no longer applies, you have to have the ability to let that go. But at the same time, you want to have a sense of your past. You want to have a sense of, where you're going, maybe. It's nice to be able to look at that and to see the progression of it. As long as, I suppose, we do it in a balanced way, and looking here, you can see the X down at the bottom there. And that's what that's saying. We want to employ the Akashic record of our lives, basically, in a way that makes sense and that is positive for the future. We don't want to have it hold us back, though, to the past of things that maybe are unpleasant. So we want to just let all that stuff go and take only the good with us into the future. So that we're not held back by anything. Let me look at the grimoire here and see. I like Othala. Some people, I now put it as the last one again. Some people put Degas as the last rune of the Elder Futhark because it's enlightenment, you know. But then it seems like when you start to remember, you know, your kinship, your inheritance, your ancestry, the greater unified presence, maybe that's what we're awakening into. And so that's why I ended up switching it back to, but I struggled with it, you know, like people do that do runes. He's like, well, where does it really belong, you know? And once that issue was brought up, once I read about that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's like, well, you know, and so I played around with it. But eventually I put Othala at the end because basically what we're doing with Degas is we're awakening into who we truly are. And who we truly are is part of the greater unified presence. If we were to remember that upon incarnating, we would know, and this whole experience would be, I'm sure, a better one than what we seem to have now. We seem to be cut off from that notion, you know, of the greater aspect of self, of the greater unified presence that we all belong to, that we're all a necessary part of. Instead, we see the other, you know, instead of seeing the collective unified sense of the Creator. Looking back at us, excuse me, there's smoke in the air out there, and there's smoke from my candles. But basically, you know, we forget about that. We don't realize that, and we see, you know, we're so divided because of it. When if we would realize that all of that is unnecessary to even consider. It's only about how are we going to build something great for the future, you know, for everyone. Everyone should matter. We shouldn't be thinking in terms of us versus them. You know, what the message of Othala is that that's just a fallacy, that we are united as one, and that our expansion is based on that. You know, we can be totally focused on ego, and when that happens, that's when the whole us versus them nonsense comes about. But when you're thinking about the greater, you know, aspect of everything as one, as part of the whole picture, then it sort of brings a different focus to it, doesn't it? And it brings a different sense to the whole foundation of our lives, because the foundation we create together, whether we realize it or not, even when we're in this us versus them mentality. You know, that's simply a choice, and it's based on a wrong notion. It's not based on truth. It's based on illusion. No matter what it looks like here, to think that we are not part of the same greater unified presence, it's just not true. We are. And all this is doing, all Othala is doing, is saying, in conjunction with Ace of Pentacles, is that we need to remember that our greatest strength in terms of, you know, today being an 8-day, is understanding that we are one and that we are part of this greater unified presence in the Creator. And to continually be at odds with one another affects the path, affects the very foundation under which we live. So that's interesting. I love when things come together like that, don't you? Well, I'm going to go take care of my throat, have some tea, maybe put a little horehound in it. That's really good for the throat. Little nettle. If you're going into, sometimes molds and different pollens are out right now, even though we're going into winter. So, you know, a lot of cleansing teas are good. Dandelion, especially now you can be digging the roots, and you can, you know, decoct those for like maybe 20 minutes. That means simmer. Bring it to a slow boil, and don't like boil rapidly, just slight boil, simmer it for like 20 minutes. And then if you want to from there, you can put the rest of your herb into it, but pull it off the stove when you do that, because you don't want to boil actual, you know, regular dried herb, only the roots typically, and some berries and stuff you can boil, but typically you're talking roots and barks when you're boiling that stuff, simmering it. That's called the decoction method as opposed to the infusion method. And so after that, you can pull it off the burner and dump the rest of your herbs in and use that as your, and then create your tea from that, and then strain after it's, after say maybe 15, 20 minutes of that, then go ahead and strain it and make sure it's tightly covered when you're infusing. Strain it all, drink it. It's a wonderful thing. So dandelion, red clover. If you have some red clover that you've dried from the season, it was beautiful this year in our pasture, so I got quite a bit. Nettle, again, nettle is a wonderful cleanser. It's a liver herb, and it also is a diuretic. It helps with allergies and things, but it's very cleansing to the body. The whole idea is that we need to, whatever we put in the body needs to get processed effectively and then get gotten rid of. Whatever the waste that's left needs to be gotten rid of. When that process does not happen easily, we become toxic, and that's how we get ill. And so if you focus on teas that make that process move easily, you can actually, if you are eating things you shouldn't be, you can help process it along a little bit better. Otherwise, it all gets stuck, and then allergies and immune things and all kinds of things happen. So the idea is to focus on herbs that push things through the body. So, anything that's going to do that is helpful. So research that. Again, dandelion leaf, dried leaf, fresh, doesn't matter. Chickweed, cleavers. I'm growing some cleavers on my deck, and they die out, during the summer. But right now I've got a pot that's just stuffed with it. It all came back, and it's just great. We saw it. I noticed it as we came in on the walk from the walk this morning, and it's just growing like crazy. So I'm going to probably go out and put some of that in my tea as well. But horehound this time of year is great. Also, elderberry, either as a tea or as a tincture. You can take and fill like a jar halfway full with elderberries, dried elderberry, put some vodka over it, like 80 proof vodka, shake it up for 2 weeks, strain it. There's your elderberry tincture. Okay. Elderberry tincture is wonderful. They've actually looked at it. The medical community has, and they have actually admitted that it does help with the flu. I don't get a flu shot. I feel funny about it. I don't know. That's just me. I mean, you guys make up your own minds. I use elderberry tincture instead, and so far I've been doing fine. So I don't know. People have different ideas about the flu shots and the pneumonia shots. I've done them. I've not done them. I don't know. At this point, I've just kind of been a little gun shy of things like that. So I tend to use things like teas and to keep myself well during the wintertime. And elderberry tincture is a wonderful thing to use in addition to that, just to maybe put, a few drops in your tea, maybe 10 drops, 15 drops, and there you go. And it will help keep you healthy and well. And hopefully if you do get sick, it'll shorten it. So, do what you want to do, see your doctor, but there's other things out there that can help as well, along with whatever you and your doctor have decided that you want to do. So I'm just one of those stubborn herbalists, and so I go a different way. That's just me, though. I highly recommend that you research all of it for yourself and talk with your doctor or your medical professor. If you go to a naturopath, whoever you see, have a conversation and see what they think. And because if you're taking medicines, you want to make sure you're not doing anything that's counteracting anything or interfering with anything you're doing. So you want to check all of that out before you do anything. So that's my disclaimer for the day. Anyhow, thanks so much for stopping by. There's my mouse. I can turn this off in a minute. Check out the blog at Stepping Aside at I'mSteppingAside.com. I didn't post yesterday's deal. I'm going to do that today along with this one. I didn't have time yesterday. We were actually running around all over town yesterday, so I just didn't have time. But I'll do that today along with this one. And check out the blog. And thanks a lot for stopping by. Click subscribe if you like, and hopefully we'll see you back tomorrow. Have a lovely day. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to other people, and blessed be.